My name is Clara Hensley, and when they told me motherhood isn't professional, I walked out with a plan. 1 year later, I bought out their department. I was 7 months pregnant, sitting in a glass-walled conference room at Pinnacle Solutions in Boise, Idaho, when my boss, Greg Altman, slid a termination letter across the table. The paper was crisp, the ink still fresh, like they'd printed it that morning just for me. "Clara," he said, his voice clipped, "we're restructuring the marketing team. Your role is no longer needed." I stared at him, my hands resting on my belly, feeling my daughter kick as if she knew something was wrong. Greg's eyes flicked to my stomach, then away, like it was an inconvenience he didn't want to acknowledge. "It's not personal," he added, leaning back in his chair. "It's just business." Not personal? I'd been their top marketing strategist for 3 years, pulling 60-hour weeks, landing clients like Cascade Tech and Boise River Company. My campaigns had doubled their revenue. I'd presented at board meetings, trained new hires, and stayed late to fix their mistakes. But now, with my due date 6 weeks away, I was no longer needed? I pushed the letter back across the table. "Greg," I said, keeping my voice steady, "is this about my performance or my pregnancy?" His face tightened, but he didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence said it all. I stood, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor, and walked out without another word. My heels clicked down the hallway, past cubicles where colleagues avoided my eyes. I could feel the weight of their stares, the whispers already starting. By the time I reached the parking lot, my hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was anger, sharp, focused, and alive. They thought they could erase me because I was about to become a mother. They thought I'd fade quietly into diapers and sleepless nights. They were wrong. That night, I sat in my small apartment, the Boise skyline dim through my window. My laptop glowed on the kitchen table, a spreadsheet open with numbers I'd been too stubborn to look at until now. Savings. Enough for 6 months, maybe 7 if I stretched it. Bills. Rent, utilities, prenatal care. I hadn't told anyone yet. Not my parents, not my friends. My family wasn't the type to rally around me. My mom would have said, "Well, maybe it's time to focus on family anyway." My dad would have grunted and changed the subject. They'd never understood why I'd chosen a career over settling down. I didn't need their pity. I needed a plan. The next morning, I called my best friend, Lena, who'd left Pinnacle a year earlier to freelance. "Clara, they fired you because you're pregnant?" she said, her voice rising over the phone. "That's illegal. Sue them." I shook my head, though she couldn't see me. "A lawsuit takes years, Lena. I need something faster. Something that hits harder." He paused, then laughed. "You're scary when you're like this, you know that? What's the plan?" I didn't have one yet, but I knew where to start. I'd spent years building Pinnacle's marketing department, learning their clients, their weaknesses, their secrets. If they thought I'd walk away empty-handed, they'd underestimated the wrong woman. Over the next few weeks, while I prepared for my daughter's arrival, I worked in the quiet hours of the night. I reached out to former clients, ones I'd personally brought to Pinnacle, and pitched them freelance services. "I'm starting my own consultancy," I told them, my voice calm but firm. "Same quality, better focus." Cascade Tech signed on first, followed by Boise River Company. They didn't ask why I'd left Pinnacle. They didn't need to. They trusted me, not the company. By the time my daughter, Ellie, was born, I had 3 clients and a growing bank account. Holding her in the hospital, her tiny fingers curled around mine, I whispered, "We're going to build something unstoppable, you and me." But Pinnacle wasn't done with me yet. A month after Ellie was born, I got an email from Greg. "Clara, we'd like to discuss a part-time role. Your expertise is missed." I laughed so hard I nearly woke Ellie from her nap. Part-time? They'd replaced me with a junior analyst who couldn't tell a marketing funnel from a kitchen funnel. Their campaigns were tanking. Clients had told me as much. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. My plan was already in motion. I incorporated my consultancy, Hensley Strategies, and rented a small office downtown. It wasn't much, just a desk, a laptop, and a coffee maker, but it was mine. I hired Lena as my first employee, and we worked around Ellie's nap schedule, building campaigns that outshone Pinnacle's. By month 6, we'd signed 2 more clients, both poached from Pinnacle's roster. I wasn't stealing, they came to me. Word was spreading. Clara Hensley was back, and she was better than ever. Then came the call that changed everything. Cascade Tech CEO Marissa Vaughn invited me to lunch. Clara, she said, stirring her iced tea, we're pulling our contract from Pinnacle. Their new team's a mess. We want to go all in with you. I nodded, keeping my face neutral. That's a big move, Marissa. What's the scope? She leaned forward, her eyes sharp. We want you to take over their entire marketing department. Not just our account. Everything. Buy them out. I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. Buy out Pinnacle's marketing department? The same department I'd built, the one they kicked me out of? It was a long shot, but I'd learned never to say no to a challenge. I'll need numbers, I said. Marissa slid a folder across the table. Here's their valuation, client list, and revenue projections. Look it over. Let me know. That night, I pored over the numbers, Ellie asleep in her crib beside me. Pinnacle's marketing department was bleeding clients, their revenue down 30% since I'd left. My consultancy, small but nimble, was already outperforming them. With Cascade Tech's backing, I could make an offer. Not just to take their clients, but to take their entire operation. The irony was almost too perfect. They'd fired me for being a mother. Now I'd hire their replacement, myself. Hey Revenge Tempest fans. Are you hooked on Clara's story? Want to know how she pulls off this epic comeback? Hit that subscribe button and join our community. Drop a comment below and let us know where in the world you're watching from, Boise, Bangkok, or beyond. Back in my tiny Boise apartment with Ellie cooing in her crib, I stared at the folder Marissa Vaughn had given me. The numbers were stark. Pinnacle Solutions marketing department, once my pride and joy, was crumbling. Their client retention was down 40%, their campaigns were flopping, and their new hires were scrambling to keep up. I'd built that department from scratch, and now it was a shadow of what I'd left behind. But Marissa's offer wasn't just about taking their clients. It was about taking everything. Buying out their entire marketing division. The thought made my pulse race, not with fear but with possibility. I wasn't naive. A buyout wasn't a simple handshake deal. I needed capital, a team, and a plan that could withstand scrutiny. Hensley Strategies was doing well. 5 clients, steady revenue, but it was still a small fish in a big pond. To pull this off, I'd need to scale fast. I called Lena that night, her voice crackling through my phone as she juggled her own toddler. Clara, you're telling me you want to buy out Pinnacle's marketing arm? Are you insane? I laughed, rocking Ellie's crib gently. Maybe. But they fired me for being a mom, Lena. I'm not letting them write my story. She sighed, then said, all right, boss. What's the first step? The first step was data. I spent weeks digging into Pinnacle's financials, using Marissa's folder and my old industry contacts. I worked from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. after Ellie's bedtime, fueled by coffee and stubbornness. Pinnacle's stock was slipping, their board was panicking, and Greg Altman, my old boss, was dodging calls from angry clients. I heard through the grapevine that he'd blamed my absence for their recent flops. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd called me unprofessional for being pregnant, but now they were begging for my expertise without even knowing it. I started building my case. I pitched Hensley Strategies to investors, emphasizing our track record and client loyalty. Marissa introduced me to a venture capital group in Seattle, led by a sharp woman named Diane Kessler. Over a Zoom call with Ellie napping in the background, I laid out my vision. Take over Pinnacle's marketing department, integrate it into Hensley Strategies, and rebuild it better. Diane leaned forward, her glasses catching the screen's glow. You're not just buying a department, Clara. You're buying leverage. What's your end game? I didn't hesitate. To show them what happens when you underestimate someone like me. By month 9, Hensley Strategies had grown. We moved into a bigger office, hired 3 more strategists, and landed another major client, Idaho Energy Solutions, who ditched Pinnacle after a botched ad campaign. My team was lean but fierce. Lena handled creative, I ran strategy, and our new hires turned out campaigns that turned heads. We were outpacing Pinnacle in every metric that mattered. But I wasn't just playing to win clients. I was playing to own the boardroom. Then came the meeting that set everything in motion. Marissa arranged a sit-down with Pinnacle's CFO Rachel Nguyen at a neutral location, a sleek conference room in downtown Boise. I walked in with Lena, my laptop, and a folder of projections. Rachel was polite but guarded, her suit as crisp as her handshake. Clara, she said, I understand you're representing Cascade Tech's interests. What's your proposal? I slid my offer across the table. Hensley Strategies would acquire Pinnacle's marketing department for $2.5 million, with Cascade Tech as a primary backer. Rachel's eyebrows shot up. "You're serious," she said, flipping through the pages. "You know this is unprecedented." "I know," I replied, my voice steady. "But your department's bleeding out. I built it once. I can rebuild it better. Under my name." Rachel didn't argue. She knew the numbers. She knew their campaigns were failing. But she also knew Greg would fight this tooth and nail. "I'll need to take this to the board," she said. "And Greg won't like it." I smiled just a little. "I'm counting on that." That night I got a call from an unknown number. It was Greg. His voice was tight, like he was trying not to yell. "Clara, what are you playing at? You think you can just waltz in and take my department?" I let the silence stretch, the way I'd learned in negotiations. "Greg," I said finally, "you fired me because you thought I couldn't handle motherhood and a career. Now you're losing clients because you couldn't handle my absence. This isn't personal. It's just business." He sputtered, then hung up. I set my phone down and kissed Ellie's forehead as she slept. The fight was just beginning. The boardroom at Pinnacle Solutions hadn't changed since the day they fired me. Same sleek mahogany table, same floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boise's skyline, same faint smell of overpriced cologne. But this time I wasn't sitting at the far end, pregnant and cornered. I stood at the head of the table, my tailored blazer sharp, my laptop open, and my team, Lena and 2 new strategists, flanking me. Across from us sat Pinnacle's board. Rachel and Gwyn, the CFO, 3 gray-suited executives, and Greg Altman, his jaw so tight I thought it might crack. It was 10 months since they'd handed me that termination letter, and now I was here to take their marketing department. Rachel opened the meeting, her voice steady but tense. "Claire, your proposal is bold. Hensley Strategies acquiring our marketing division is a significant move. We've reviewed your numbers and Cascade Tech's backing makes it viable. But we need to discuss terms." Greg cut in before I could respond, his face red. "This is absurd, Rachel. She's a former employee. She doesn't have the resources or the experience to pull this off." I met his eyes, calm as stone. "Greg, my firm's revenue is up 50% this year. Yours is down 30%. I've already signed 4 of your former clients. Want to talk resources?" The room went quiet. One of the executives, a man with silver hair and a skeptical frown, leaned forward. "Hensley, why should we trust you with this? You're young and your firm's barely a year old." I slid a folder across the table. Projections, client testimonials, and a detailed integration plan. "Because I built your department once," I said. "I know its strengths, its flaws, and how to fix it. You're losing ground because you bet on the wrong people." I didn't look at Greg, but everyone knew who I meant. The negotiations stretched for hours. Greg pushed back at every turn, questioning my valuation, my timeline, even my motives. "This feels personal, Clara," he said at one point, his voice low. I smiled just enough to unsettle him. "It's not personal, Greg. It's just business." By the end, Rachel and the board were nodding. They saw the numbers, the client defections, the sinking morale. They saw me, a woman they'd underestimated, standing taller than their doubts. At 4 p.m., Rachel extended her hand. "We have a deal. Hensley Strategies will acquire Pinnacle's marketing division, effective next month." I shook her hand, my grip firm, my face neutral. Inside, my heart was pounding. I'd done it. The department I'd built, the one they'd thrown me out of, was now mine. Greg stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor, and stormed out without a word. Lena whispered, "That felt good, didn't it?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The victory wasn't in Greg's defeat. It was in what I'd built from nothing. The transition wasn't easy. Integrating Pinnacle's team into Hensley Strategies meant late nights, tough calls, and firing 2 of Greg's hires who couldn't keep up. But my team was ready. Lena took lead on creative, our new strategists streamlined operations, and I focused on clients. Cascade Tech doubled their contract, and Boise River Company signed a 2-year extension. Within 3 months, Hensley Strategies was running Pinnacle's old department better than they ever had. We launched campaigns that went viral, boosted client revenue, and landed us in industry blogs. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The numbers spoke for me. Then came the moment I hadn't expected. A month after the acquisition, Greg called again. I was in my office, Ellie giggling in her playpen as I reviewed a campaign draft. Clara, he said, his voice softer now, I owe you an apology. I misjudged you. We shouldn't have let you go. I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch. You didn't let me go, Greg. You fired me because I was pregnant. You thought motherhood would make me weak. He stammered. I didn't. I cut him off. You don't get to rewrite the past. I've moved on. So should you. I hung up, kissed Ellie's forehead, and went back to work. My parents called a week later, their voices hesitant. Clara, we heard about your company, my mom said. You're doing so well. Why didn't you tell us? I almost laughed. They'd never asked about my career, never showed up for my presentations or celebrated my wins. I tried, I said simply. You weren't listening. They offered to visit, to meet Ellie, to start over. I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes either. I'd spent too long waiting for their approval. I didn't need it anymore. A year after that boardroom meeting, I stood in my new office, bigger now, with a view of Boise's riverfront. Ellie was toddling around, chasing a toy car, while Lena and I planned our next campaign. Hensley Strategies wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. We'd outgrown Pinnacle's shadow, built a team of 12, and signed clients across the Northwest. I wasn't the woman they'd fired anymore. I was the woman who'd replaced their future. I used to think success was about proving them wrong. Greg, my parents, everyone who doubted me. But it wasn't. It was about proving myself right. I'd always known I could build something unstoppable, even when they called me unprofessional for choosing motherhood. Now I had Ellie, my team, my company, and a life I'd carved out on my terms. They could keep their apologies. I'd already won. Hey, Revenge Tempest fans. Did Clara's comeback give you chills? We're all about epic stories of triumph here, so hit that subscribe button to join the crew. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from.